Welcome to video number 2 in the My Wife Runs a Marathon series. Today's video episode of the Duathlon Show is a recap of our first race of the year, the Prospect Park Polar Bear 5K in Brooklyn, USA. That was on January 25th. It was a cold one, Elisha. It was 24 degrees Fahrenheit. That's -4 on the Celsius scale. How did you feel that morning?
So cold. Actually, we saw lots of frozen drinks. Those frozen seltzers they were giving out had frozen in the overnight coolers, so it was very cold.
Yeah, some of the giveaway drinks had frozen. We'll get more to that later. What were you wearing this morning for this race in New York City, in Brooklyn, in Prospect Park? What were you wearing? 24 degrees Fahrenheit.
A lot of layers. I had 2 pairs of leggings on, 4 or 5 layers on top.
Specifically, like what were you wearing?
Oh, I think
what on top? Like, yeah. Was it like two yoga pants down below, or running tights? What were they?
One I guess was like my Under Armour winter weather leggings, and then over that were just some slightly baggier like sweatpants, and then on the top I had like a skin tight shirt, a loose long sleeve shirt,
polyester, not cotton, moisture wicking, hopefully something.
Yeah, and then a light sweatshirt from a previous race, and then a running jacket, my Brooks running jacket over that, and then gloves. I think I wore the balaclava and some thick and tall socks too.
You forgot the most important piece of gear for the running athlete. What is that? The shoes. Yeah. What shoes?
The Nova Blast 5s?
No, not the Nova Blast 5.
What are they? I don't know. The New Balance More V4.
New Balance More V4. Yeah. We got a great deal on the NV More V4 recently at the New Balance outlets.
It was the first time I did a race in them, and I haven't really worn them all that much. I think I really like them. I'm used to a much thinner shoe. These are certainly thicker. I felt the rocking sensation I've heard you talk about, and even just the like extra squishiness of the sole. It was noticeable, and it felt good on my legs. And for not really training for this, I felt slightly faster, just because of the shoes.
And that's in comparison to your other current running shoe, the Brooks Levitate, correct?
Yeah.
You mentioned training there. What has been your training so far this year? We're talking a race on January 25th. So give me from January 1st up until the race, tell me about what's been done or not done.
I think I ran 2 or 3 times before the race, and probably 3 or 4 miles each time. So not
my
much.
notes say 2 4-mile runs in January before race day. That's a total of 12.8 kilometers, says my research. What were your goals going into this race, considering the fact that your training was just very light?
I didn't have any strong goals. I guess just to keep with like my not fast 5K time, but perhaps just normal, which is around like 30 to 31 minutes, and I was near that. It might have gone over by a couple seconds.
What is your 5K PB, best time ever?
I think it's just under 29 minutes.
Because I'm an American, of course, I'm going to have the most obnoxious, jingoistic opinion, which is that the 5-kilometer race is best split up into 3 1-mile segments and a final 0.1-mile sprint. I can't think of a better way to divide a 5K than into 3 1-mile segments and the final 0.1 split. If there's anything more intuitive than that, you'll have to show me. It just makes so much sense. Let's break this down mile by mile. Tell me about your first mile. I'll describe it and then I'll ask you how it went. Based on the parkour in the course and the Strava route data, the first mile was 64 feet of elevation. This contains most of the east side Prospect Park Hill, which is the big hill in the park. So a bunch of elevation, a good amount of elevation here. How did that first mile feel? It says here your first mile pace was 9:52 per mile or 6:07 kilometer pace. How did that feel?
I felt pretty tired pretty quickly. It was it was very cold, and the cold was super noticeable, especially in the first mile. I think the later miles felt slightly less cold, whether that side of the park got warmer with more sun, or maybe I warmed up, but I was so cold. Like, all of my skin was covered except for probably my nose, and it was feeling the fact that it wasn't covered. And then I did just get tired, and like you said, the most of the elevation for the run happens in the first mile, and I really wanted to make it through a mile without having to stop to walk at all, and it's basically what I did. So, but I needed that small walk break. It was pretty tiring.
Well, we're not there yet. Data says you did not stop to have your first walk break until mile 2. So let's go forward to mile 2. In the second mile, you finish the hill climb after 0.2 miles. So at 1.2 miles, you're done with Prospect Park East Side Hill. That's, maybe 321 meters into that second mile. Then the rest of that mile is relatively flat as you make the turn southwards on the Prospect Park Drive. Your pace for this mile 2 was 10:26 per mile, or 6:29 per kilometer.
I feel like of all the miles, this one I don't really remember. And I don't know what that says about it. Probably that I was just...
Oxygen deficiency.
Just
brain oxygen deficiency.
Through, but I don't have any strong memories from that mile. I don't remember thinking it's hard or easy. I think I was just trying to get by. And I was mostly alone for the race. Every now and then I'd come across another runner of the race. Of course, there were other runners and walkers in the park too. And I think this is the mile where I caught up to someone and she passed me and then I passed her, and we went on like that for a little bit. But otherwise, I don't remember too much about this mile.
It does look like you stopped to walk 3 times, right at the beginning of the second mile, and then 2 more times. That's normal for you when you run, right?
I try not to walk more than once a mile. Like the 3 times, I think I walked more in this 5K than my normal, especially for a race. If I were just doing it like a training run, maybe I'm more willing to stop, but I still think I stopped more in this race than I would say my normal. But yes, I do stop and do a walk at least once a mile usually.
That's the best running style for you. You've been running since, when did you start? 2018?
2017.
2017. And you've always run like that in the run-walk method?
Yeah, I just kind of did that naturally. I did not get that from any research. It kind of, I guess it's a matter of listening to my body, which I hear you're supposed to do anyways. And so I used to, when I really was starting, I think I would try to take certain breaks strategically, whether it was like counting a certain distance and then saying, when you hit this distance, you can walk, or an uphill's coming, so I have to keep running until I hit the uphill, and then I can take the walk break, or something like that, like giving myself
the lamppost
landmarks.
method.
I was going to say, I do count lampposts sometimes too. Depends where I am and what's available for counting.
The mailbox method.
So yeah, I guess I always did that just kind of naturally. It's what felt right in my body, and I don't think it slows me down. Like if I ran the whole time, I think I would just run slower. I think I've tested it, so for me, it's my personal preference.
Yeah, and that's your plan for the marathon eventually this November in the New York City Marathon. That's the end goal of this whole series of all this running and training. That's going to be your method on that day as well, right? The run walk?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Majority run, but yes, walk.
Let's go into the third mile here. The third mile was the fast one. That's because it's the downhill mile. Minus 94 feet of elevation on this downhill fast run-in towards the finish line. Your pace was 9:22 a mile, or 5:50 per kilometer. Tell me about mile 3.
Okay, what I remember about this one is there were a lot of they had pacers for this race because it was also a half marathon. And I was not trying to follow a pacer or anything, but I would notice them pass me or me pass them, and it was just giving me a sense of where I might be at for my own pace, I guess, and giving me some sort of motivation. And I must have hit the final mile right near a pacer, because I heard him say, "This is it. It's like the final mile, like all downhill." And it kind of clicked, and it was actually pretty helpful motivation, because then I did speed up and I lost that pacer, so I finished far in front of that pace group. But That was good motivation. So I do remember it picking up speed, being downhill. I also remember thinking I was at the final turn of the race, but I wasn't. I just thought I was somewhere else in the park, and I knew the course. It wasn't like that. I just thought I was somewhere else, and so I feel like I sort of put in more effort a little too early, because at the very end I was even more tired. But overall, yes, that one, the downhill was noticed.
I think we can see that spike here in your intensity right there when you thought that you were rounding the final curve, but there was another final curve after that.
I wasn't there at all. As soon as I realized that I knew where I was, and I wasn't there at all.
All right, so we have to wrap it up with the best part of every race, the final sprint, the last 0.1 miles of this 5K. How did that feel? And did you see me standing behind the line, taking photos and yelling your name?
I saw you. I heard you. I didn't feel like that was my favorite part of the race. I struggled through that. I knew I was slower than I wanted to be. I was just tracking my phone, not a watch, and it told me I finished 3.1 miles, at least a tenth of a mile sooner than the course, and I think my phone was wrong. So that also impacted me, where I was like, no, I hit my time goals and everything, and I guess I didn't. I don't know. It's iffy, but yeah, I don't know. I was pretty tired and pretty beat and ready to be done and warm up. So I don't think I had a sprint finish or anything.
Says here your official time is 31:09. That's good for 51st out of 127 finishers, 21 out of 73 overall in the female category, and 6th out of 22 in your age group, 30 to 39. How do you feel about that result now that I've read it out there?
I mean, yes, I wish it was under 31 minutes, but all of the other stats, I did see that myself, and I feel pretty good and surprised in the percentage of where I land in the field. So happy about that. So maybe everyone was just a little bit slower because, of course, it was really cold.
All right, let's talk about the actual best part of any race, which is the experience after the finish line. Let me ask you about the snacks, the drinks, the medals, the step and repeat, the overall race day vibe at the finish line, which isn't really, well, it was the finish line. It was where we registered, dropped off our bags. It wasn't the start line because the Prospect Park loop is a little bit longer than 5K. So the start has to be a little advanced from the finish there in this loop. But yeah, how did you feel about the finish line experience?
Actually, I thought it was pretty good. I think they did a nice job. They said they'd have a lot of snacks, and they weren't lying. They actually had more snacks and pastries and baked goods than most races I've been to, and they were all pretty tasty and packaged in for someone with food allergies. Sometimes I don't know what I can take, especially with baked goods, but these were all labeled, and it was very clear. They had water. And then you got a medal, which is always a nice touch. And then they just had, I guess, their sponsors that were there, and they were giving out various swag items, but including some samples of non-alcoholic beer and the Waterloo seltzers, which are the ones that were actually frozen. And the poor guy giving them out had to warn everyone not to open them until you let them defrost at home. So I think it was really nice.
What about the t-shirt?
Forgot about the t-shirt. I haven't taken a good look at it. I'm happy to have it, but I guess I don't have an opinion on it. Do you?
We'll put an image of the t-shirt right up here on the screen. It's got a polar bear on it. It was the same image as last year because I ran this race last year. This same race organization does some other races which have better t-shirts. Hopefully that'll be our next one on the docket. Our next race, if you agree to do it with me, would be February 8th, 2025, the Cupid's Chase race, put on by the same organization, which is called Elite Feats, F-E-A-T-S. And it's a big city 5K, so we paid $45, which, you might pay $25 in your hometown, but, we do live in the city, and it's kind of expected. There's more expensive 5Ks out there. What did you think of the race, Oregon General, and Are you going to do another one with these guys? With me? Because I plan to.
I'll do the next one, and I would do others. I think that there's so many race organizers and organizations in New York City, and they're all various levels and differences. And you're right about the price that steep, but it's kind of the going rate here anyways. I think it's clear. I don't know. I was going to say it's like a lower caliber setup and everything. Sure, they don't have like a real finish line or anything like that. It's really just cones and the course
No bag
itself.
security.
Yeah.
An informal bag drop only, but no one seemed to be troubling. And no bag thieves that I saw
Yeah.
or heard about.
But it's true. There's nowhere to like check a bag. And even on the course, they don't have the miles labeled. And so it's lacking in some of that stuff. But I think we all knew what we were signed up for and didn't expect like anything too fancy. And so it certainly met my expectations, but
there was ice on the course, but I think that's you wouldn't expect a race organization to clear a public park of ice. If anybody's going to clear the public park of ice, the running and walking path of the public park of ice, that should be the Parks Department.
Yeah, but yeah, that's true. There was some ice too, but yeah, I think it was a nice experience, and it's also maybe just a little more low key, lower pressure. At least I wasn't taking it terribly seriously, but I don't get the sense that many people there were there for like a serious race and more for something fun and an excuse to sort of get out and run in a group setting or something like that.
So, did you have a good time?
Good enough.
All right. Tell the people about your fundraising efforts for this New York City Marathon.
Well, I can't remember if we talked about it in the last video, but yes, I am running the New York City Marathon in November, and as part of that, I'm on Team for Kids, and so I am trying to raise money for the organization, which creates programs in New York City, but also nationwide for children, getting them out there. Yes, it's very running based, but they do other activities, and it's just an effort to get kids out there and active. And I know growing up, I was fortunate that my parents had me signed up for sports and dance, and I got to take advantage of a lot of that. So I see the value in an organization like this. So if you are interested in supporting me on this journey, we will include the link in the...
Will the link be down below?
Down below.
It will be down below. Thank you, Elisha. Until next time, stay dry, everybody.